What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Sci Fi Bookery. I'm Josh. It's the end of the month, so you know what that means. Well, actually, you might you might not know what that means now that I think about it, because this is the first one. So this is the Book Was Better book club. So at the end of each month, I will review the book that we read and announce the book for the next month. So our book for March for the first Book Was Better book club read was this back here. This is the Michael Crichton classic, Jurassic Park. One of my all-time favorite movies growing up, still to this day, one of my all-time favorite movies, sci-fi or otherwise. I think it would definitely hit probably a top 5 on my list of favorite movies that I could watch at any point in time and be totally happy watching it. So the book was a no-brainer. It was amazing, to say the least. It hits everything that Crichton does well. Insane amounts of research to get everything absolutely perfect, plus a thrilling adventure story. And I think that's what makes Michael Crichton such an engaging writer. He writes in a very approachable way, but it's just, you can see the amount of research that goes into his books, and mixing that in with like action adventure and then with like factual pieces of along the way is just fantastic. So I did think that the book was very well represented in the movie, but there were a lot of differences. So I want to jump into those. And I'm gonna say that there are spoilers here. I can't do this without spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, maybe not the best time to watch this. Or if you just, you don't really care and you just want to know what happens, great. I'm not going into crazy amounts of spoilers, but there are, in showing the differences between the movie and the book, there's definite spoilers for both. So if you haven't watched the movie, you haven't read the book, probably not the best time to watch this, but I appreciate the support. Maybe hit a like down there instead, or thumbs down. They both count the same way in the algorithm. I don't really care. First thing I want to talk about is the characters, because any good book needs good characters, and these characters were great. So I want to start off with Dr. Alan Grant. So Grant, not my favorite in the movie. Ian Malcolm's definitely my favorite character in the movie, which I think, along with a lot of people my age who watched that movie when they were like 12, 13 years old, I think they would probably agree, because Ian Malcolm is he's just cool. But Alan Grant is, in the book, my favorite character. And it's because he just he has this kind of take charge thing about him. And in the book, he likes kids. In the movie, he doesn't like kids at all. So it's kind of funny. It's that duality where I think a lot of people are, where it's like you're never sort of indifferent to kids or dogs. You either like them or you don't like them. And I'm not comparing kids and dogs, although the comparisons are there. But that's kind of the thing with Grant. And in the book, he's in the movie, he's an expert in velociraptors. In the book, he's an expert in dinosaur nests, which makes so much more sense, because at his dig site, it's all dinosaur nests. And it's like an island where the dinosaurs lay their eggs in these nests on the sides of the island to protect them. And then they all sort of help protect each other's eggs. The similarities between birds and dinosaurs is more prevalent in the book, because it goes into a lot more detail as to why Crichton chose to draw those similarities, and sort of the research and stuff that he did along the way to get to that conclusion. Whereas in the book, or in the movie, I mean, it's just sort of like Alan Grant's harebrained idea. In the book, it makes so much more sense. And I think that's why I think Grant was my favorite character, because he's kind of the main character in the book. And it really follows him the majority of the book. But I liked him so much because he was that sort of like factual center for the entire book. And he fights velociraptors, he fights pterodons. He's just a total badass in the book. So that's also different from his sort of like old weathered guy persona in the movie. Like he's a total badass, and I love that about him. So now Ellie Sattler, she's not a love interest like in the movie. So I was kind of happy with that because I never liked that sort of storyline. And then in the Jurassic World movies, like later on, they kind of show them, they sort of like rekindle their love kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not big on a love story in an adventure movie. But anyways, in the book, she's much younger than him. She's more of like a research assistant with him. And I kind of liked that. So she goes along with him as a research assistant to Jurassic Park. She's not out there in the park with them fighting off dinosaurs and striving to survive. She's actually back at the compound with Malcolm, who I'll get into in a minute after he gets injured. She kind of like is a nurse to him through the book. So I see why they brought her into a different role in the movie, because it made more sense with the adventure aspect to it. Because really, back at the compound with her taking care of Malcolm, it's more so that he can talk and that he can explain things. And I'm going to dig right into him. So Ian Malcolm, my favorite character in the movie, is okay in the book. I didn't love him. It goes into more of him being like a mathematical rock star in the book. And it really, really digs into chaos theory. And I love that, because in the movie, it's kind of like, well, you know, you drop water on your hand and it goes this way, and well, that's chaos. Oh, and then she left the Jeep. Well, that's chaos theory right there. It's so much more explained. And it's because Malcolm gets to have an audience, you know. So what happens with him is when the T-Rex attacks, that's all similar. I'll get into that later on. But it actually picks him up and throws him, and he gets severely injured and needs to go back to the compound to get medical care. So he has this audience of people that he can just talk to, which is so perfect for Malcolm. And Jeff Goldblum really made that character his own. So there were points in the book where I'm like, yeah, that's totally the Ian Malcolm that I know from the movie. But Jeff Goldblum made that character great. Like, he's just sort of a side character in the book too. You know, Grant is the main character for sure, but Ian Malcolm is kind of this side character who just kind of explains things. And in the movie, I mean, Goldblum made Malcolm a real star. So he took that kind of like all-star mathematician persona and just amped it up. And throughout all of the movies, throughout the whole series, even going through Jurassic World Dominion, he was that character and he played it so well. And I don't think that the character would have survived even the first movie if it wasn't for Goldblum and his amazing portrayal of that character. And he has so many great lines. He has this beautiful soliloquy towards the end of the book. And it's so beautiful the way that he describes life and the struggle of life on Earth. And it's just, he sums it up so perfectly. And of course, in classic Ian Malcolm, it's not concise at all. It's pages of his soliloquy. It's Shakespearean almost. But it just sums it up so beautifully. And I really loved the way that he did that. And just like in the movie, he gets on Hammond's nerves at every turn. So I liked his character, but I loved him. Now let's talk about the kids. Lex is even more annoying, if you can believe it, even more annoying in the book. She's actually younger than Tim in the book, but more annoying than in the movie for sure. And in the movie, I hate her character. Tim in the book is a genius. You know, he's more of a genius. So he kind of like fixes everything for everybody. He's the one that solves the problems pretty much throughout the whole book. He's a genius. He's super into computers, just like, you know, in the movie. But one aspect to it is there's that divorce story that plays out in Jurassic World, where the two boys and their parents are getting divorced, and there's that whole sort of like drama behind it. Parents separated, living in different houses, and the kids trying to sort it all out while they're struggling for survival on this dinosaur island. That is in this book, and that's with Lex and Tim. So I found that kind of interesting because Grant is able to sort of be a father figure to them at a time when their dad isn't really there for them or in the picture. So I liked the way that Grant was able to step in there with the kids. Okay, Arnold, amazingly portrayed by Samuel L. Jackson. This character who's he plays a pivotal role in the book, and Samuel L. Jackson did such a great job of playing him. It's you could see him in the book, but he doesn't say, "Hold on to your butts," and that was horribly disappointing. Dennis Nedry, oh my goodness. He is, I don't remember the actor's name who plays him, Newman from Seinfeld. He plays it so perfectly. It's almost like the role was written for him. Like Michael Crichton wrote this book with him in mind, playing that role. He is so perfect in it. At every turn, everything he does is exactly as Nedry does in the book. And it's just great. I loved that of it. Like I could picture him in the book. So that was really cool. One thing that was different with his character was in the movie, he kills the power, steals the embryos, and takes off for the dock and ends up dying on the way in spectacular fashion, as is all of the deaths with dinosaurs. And so he gets down that far, and the storm and everything knocks it out. So the power's out. We just think he's gone. He's going to the dock and he's taking the embryos and he's out of here. But in the book, he fully intends on coming back and turning the power on so nobody even knows he was gone. So he plans on killing the power for the gates just so he can get through, hightail it down to the dock. He figures it'll take a few minutes to get there, but the storm hits and all the roads get washed out and all of that still happens. Like all of that happens exactly the same as in the movie. But in the book, it points out that he had planned to turn the power back on his return. So I thought that was kind of cool because that was one of those sort of loose ends in the movie. You're like, so he just sabotaged the entire island and basically was responsible for all of these people dying just because he was a bad guy. But like in the book, it explains he's not a bad guy. He kind of got screwed over repeatedly, and it led to him taking these actions. So he's not trying to hurt anyone. He's just trying to get what he believes is owed to him, which I think a lot of people can relate to that. He's a much more relatable character in the book than he is in the movie. So let's talk about Dodson, since we just talked about Dennis Nedry. So Dodson, the guy he meets, and he's like, Dodson, it's Dodson. See, nobody cares. He gets such a better story in the book. His background, you learn more about who he is and what he's been through to get where he is. And he's just an employee of Biosin, which later on we see him in Jurassic World Dominion as the CEO of Biosin. And now he's apparently in this Camp Crustacean, what am I thinking? Cretaceous? Camp Cretaceous show about Jurassic Park. It's like an animated show. So he's supposedly in that. But anyways, so he's the CEO of Biosin towards the end, but in the book and in the original movie, he's kind of like an errand boy, but he's a very pivotal role. So he's the one that kind of starts the chain reaction. He's the one that brings Nedry the money, that causes him to get the embryos, that causes him to turn off the electricity, which causes all dinosaurs to escape and all this stuff to happen. So he does that. He's kind of like that guy. But in the book, we get so much more background on him, and he's actually a really full character. And I'm excited to see if he comes back in some of the subsequent books. I heard Lost World he does. So I'm going to read that and see how that goes. And now, of course, the man, John Hammond, who spared no expense. He is such an, he's almost evil in the book. In the movie, we see him as this like kindly elderly man with his little cane with the amber on the top, and he's, oh yes, this and this, and he's got a nice sweet accent. In the book, he is pure evil. He will do anything and risk lives and to get that park open and to get it online and to get the investors happy. He does it, he cares so little about other people's lives that he actually brings his grandchildren in, not for a fun weekend at the park, but to prove to the investors that the park is good for kids. And spoiler alert, it is most definitely not. So he's an absolute jerk in the movie, or in the book. So I was really surprised about that. And since we're talking about Hammond, let's talk about his death. That's right. He dies in the book. He doesn't die in the first movie, and his death in the book is so satisfying and so perfect for who he is. So you see his death in the book mirrored in the Lost World movie, which was the second movie of the original Jurassic Park series. Dieter Stark, who's like the hunter that comes to the island, he gets killed by the compies, so they like nip at him a little bit and get him down, and then nip at him a little more, and it sorts of they eventually kill him. The book is it's such a beautiful death. You know, if you could have beautiful deaths. So Hammond falls down this ravine, sprains his leg, and spends a long time just laying there contemplating things and everything he's done and everything that's led to this point in his life. And as he starts to try to get up the hill, he falls back down again, and it's this whole sort of routine, and it's just this long drawn out it's like this introspective relationship that Crichton is having with the audience, and it's all based on Hammond, and you still see to the bitter end that he's still evil. He regrets nothing. And then the compies show up, which are these little like chicken-sized dinosaurs, and they just start nipping at him a little bit. And he remembers that Wu talked about this, that these animals, they have this venom that kind of works like a hallucinogenic, and then it says that Hammond like started to feel euphoric and everything was okay, and then it bit him in the neck. And it's just such a sweet death, and it's so satisfying for him, because through the whole movie or the whole book, you just hate him. So I loved that. That was an awesome death. Another great death, of course, was Dennis Nedry, who we talked about before. He ends up down, not getting the dock. He ends up getting killed by the Dilophosaurus, and they spit venom that paralyzes and melts flesh and whatever. And what's funny though, in the book, Wu, who's the head scientist behind the whole thing, he doesn't understand how the venom actually works or why they spit the venom. So we find out through Nedry's death. So that makes so much more sense, because in the movie, it's just like, oh, this is such a cool dinosaur and it's spitting stuff and whatever. But in the book, you get all this background on the dinosaur, and it's much more focus on that. There is the focus on velociraptors, of course, but the focus on the Dilophosaurus is, it's really cool because you don't learn a lot about that dinosaur in the movie. And of course, it's not 100% accurate to what scientists believe they actually did, but it's way cooler. So that's what's great about, science fiction, is you can just make it as cool as you want. So that sort of thing was kind of neat, seeing Wu have all this research and still couldn't figure out what they do, and then you actually see what they do. So that's really neat. Speaking of Wu, he dies. He doesn't show up for 6 more movies. He just dies. He gets gutted by a velociraptor. Oh my goodness, so cool. Just big claw right through. rips him open. Such a cool death for Wu. Gennaro too. So Gennaro, the lawyer that comes. First of all, he is a big hulking man in the book. He's like a bodybuilder style guy. Like, he's tough. He can hold his own. So he lives in the book. He actually saves Grant at one point. In the movie, though, he's the guy that gets eaten off the toilet. He's this little wimpy, scrawny guy that runs and gets eaten while he's sitting on a toilet by the T-Rex. But in the book, he lives because he's a tough, survivable kind of guy. So I really like that he lived, because I like him. So speaking of that, the T-Rex attack, Malcolm gets picked up and flung. And I think that he sort of replaced Gennaro in that scene. So he gets flung. He's on his deathbed the entire movie. And the entire book. And at the end, they say that he dies, but I don't believe it, because you don't actually see it. Everyone else who they say dies at the end, you saw them die. I don't believe it for a minute, Michael. And I'm going to read the next book and see if he actually did die, in fact. Also, Muldoon lives. So the guy who he's the not the zoologist, but he's like the animal expert who has the big gun, and he says, "Hey folks," all that stuff with the cool hat. And his famous line is "Clever girl," and the velociraptor attacks him and eats him. So he lives in this because, again, he's a badass. So all the badasses live in this movie, and all the cowardly or evil people die. So it's like such a such a satisfying book. Whereas in the movie, a lot of the softer characters die. The characters who you really love, which is what makes a good movie. I liked Wu in the book, and he died. I was stunned when he died, especially getting attacked by a velociraptor, because you didn't see it coming. You didn't know that velociraptor was there. So such a great little death scene for Wu. I thought that really sent him off well.